Hey y'all, hey, welcome to the Octavia Butler mixtape course. I'm Dr. Brianna Whiteside, and for the last 9 months, y'all, we have been studying the work of Octavia Butler. And that's so crazy that we have been studying Butler's work for 9 months. Can't believe it. But today, we are wrapping up the course. After 9 long months together, we are wrapping up Butler's canon with a few more of her short stories and some of her essays. Annesty, the Book of Martha, which is one of my favorite short stories, and then 2 of her essays that were also found in Bloodchild and Other Stories. Guys, this has been such an amazing journey and ride. Let me just say that this has been such an amazing journey and ride. You know what I'm saying? And I want to tell y'all a little bit because I know that we all came together before we, hop into the discussion. I know we all came together like randomly, right? I was looking back at the syllabus because I'm writing like one extended essay on the Substack, which should be up by the end of the week. But I'm writing one extended essay on the Substack about this course and some of my reflections and thoughts. And I look back at the first syllabus, which was only all of the Patternist books and Kindred, and realized that we started the course January 24th. And here we are, September 10th. And so we've been tracking, but as I was writing the extended essay, I started the essay with the Octavia Butler course was never supposed to be a course. It was never supposed to be a thing. It was literally this serendipitous moment where I got on TikTok live I got on TikTok and I was talking about the California wildfires. And then it just so happened at the same time that I was speaking about the California wildfires, TikTok University was emerging as this organic thing. And it was kind of like this right place, right time, right idea type of situation, right? But what a lot of people don't know, and I shared this on the Substack when y'all see the extended essay, what a lot of people don't know is that like moments before I got on TikTok, and talked about the wildfires and how it reminded me of Butler's Parable series, I was in tears, like full blown tears, because I was looking at my research and I was like, is all of this about to go to waste, right? All of the years that I spent at Butler's archive, all of the years that I spent studying, the master's thesis, the dissertation, the countless scholarly essays and book chapters, I was wondering, like, did it all go to waste? Because y'all know at the time I also left my career. I had left my career months before. And I was in tears because I'm like, yo, I can't believe I did all this stuff and I'm just abandoning it. And then I get on TikTok, I see the coverage of the California wildfires, and I just do this random video about how these fires remind me of Parable of the Sower. And to my surprise, that ends up opening up another world of people who are interested in Butler's work. And I just so happened to be a Butler scholar and had all of this research, all of these ideas, all of these thoughts, and it was just time and chance aligning to allow me to spend the last 9 months with you all studying this work. And so I just want to I know y'all said thank you to me last class, but I want to say thank you to you all for showing me that my work was not in vain, that my research and the things that I thought and wanted to share were not in vain. Thank you all for rocking with me. It's been a rocky ride. Y'all been with me through some grief. I probably didn't show it on the live, but I was in the waves of grief still, but I had a purpose to show up for. That's what I want to say. I had a purpose to show up for, and you guys were a large part of that new purpose for the last 9 months. And so I just want to say thank you all for trusting me with your attention, trusting me, with the discussions, just letting me facilitate the discussion and us coming together as a community, because this has been so much of a benefit to me as it probably has also been for you all. And so I just want to start this class off by saying thank you for rocking with me. And I'm so grateful to have y'all. Okay. Woo. Before I cry my eyelashes off. Y'all know what to do. This is the last class. Hop, hit the two people at the bottom if y'all want to come up and share. First of all, we're going to discuss the two short stories, but then as we get into Butler's essays, I want people to come up and share their thoughts on Butler. Like, what did you learn? Do you appreciate her work? Like, I think that this should just be a culmination of Butler thoughts. Y'all know what I'm saying? Tina says, what's your cash out? It's the Book of Brianna. Oh, I was going to say that. What is my same name on here? It's the Book of Brianna, Tina, if you wanted to. But I want everyone to come up here and share you all's thoughts after we discuss the essays. I mean, not the essays, the two short stories, Annesty, which feel like a long story to me, and the Book of Martha, which is a really great story to me. And then, y'all know, we're going to close out. Erica's, why do I keep calling you Erica? Erica Ebony. I keep getting this name mixed up in my mind. I know it's some weeks and then other weeks. Big E. E keeps saying, don't say the last class. It's the last class for now. It's the last class for now on Butler. I did say last week, Ebony. Thank you, Ebony. Last week I did say if my schedule opens back up for us to go ahead and start another author, I would definitely send the email to the Substack and make an announcement here on TikTok so that we can get back into it. I just can't commit to it right now. But it's been in the back of my mind. Let me say this. As much as I don't want to end the class, I still want to be accountable and give my best effort. And I just know I can't right now. Tina, Valerie, hey.
Hey.
What up?
What's up? I'm still having my time. I told my husband, he was like, why are you so moping around? I'm like, 'cause it's over.
Look, your husband almost got cussed out the other week. He didn't get you up.
Yes.
I know. It's been such a great ride, y'all. I don't even know y'all, but I'm like, yeah. When I see y'all name, I'm like, yeah. Hell yeah. This is great. So thank you for being here and being a constant participant for sure.
Yeah. The Martha one was really interesting. Like, you know what? What's interesting to me is that these short stories, I wish she just would have picked up some of these and ran with them. There's a few of them that I would have loved to have seen in long form.
Mm-hmm. I feel like Annesty had some type of semblance to Dawn, like the Xenogenesis trilogy.
It did.
Right, yeah. I did pick up on that. So, and if y'all do read the Unexpected Stories by Octavia Butler, you'll notice some similarities with some of her other works as well. Like more specifically, Mind of My Mind. There is a similarity of one of the short stories in that novella. Okay. Valerie.
Hi.
Hey.
I just came up because to be like share my thoughts on like Butler and whatnot, because the only two short stories I really read in this book is the first two that we did in class that I missed that I really enjoyed, and I was like, you know what, I'm not really gonna read the rest of you guys are talking about all the incest. So I was like, I'm done. I don't want to read incest. But anyways, Octavia Butler has easily become my number one favorite author, and just like I've never liked sci-fi or anything like that, and it's just like sitting down to read sci-fi from somebody like in the 80s and seeing how like ahead of her time and everything, like she has hit all the things that I am very fascinated by, like genetic engineering, like even all the cool like sexual and gender fluidity of everything. It's just, she's amazing, and her world building is amazing. And I feel so spoiled by her writing because, like, now I'm going to be going around reading other books and it's just not going to be the same. Everybody's going to be, like, so mediocre compared to Butler. But, and I've enjoyed loving to, sorry, I'm walking to the bank, so that's why it's so noisy in the background. But, yeah, I don't know, enjoying to read all these books with you guys every week has also been a once in a lifetime amazing experience and just made it even more wonderful because we get to have somebody to discuss all the thoughts and feelings we have about all these books while reading it and not just like hold it in in our minds and stuff. And yeah, this has just been a wonderful experience. And Butler is easily my new number one favorite author. I love her writing. And I love how ahead of her time she is. And yeah. All right, I'm bouncing off.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. And, this reading with you all. So there's a different type of reading that happens behind the ivory tower, behind academic walls, as opposed to what happens in community, right? In an organic online community like this, or even in a communal setting. And this go round of reading has definitely opened my eyes to different things in Butler's work that I probably wouldn't have gotten if I was just in the academic classroom, right? Some of the thoughts, the ideas, the discussion, the pushback, the push and pull, like reading with you all is significantly different than reading when I did it in prison. No, I wasn't in prison, but I taught in prison, and in different universities that I taught. Definitely different, more rich, and I really, really appreciate that.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you in this positive obsession, that first one, I don't know. I felt like when she was going through everything that she was talking about, it occurred to me that she may have been on the spectrum. There was just it was something she was saying, and the way the way that she, like when she called it like a positive obsession, and you just can't get rid of it or whatever else. And I'm like, that sounds so much like it when people talk about like I have a special a special focus, and some of her mannerisms and some of the things she said about like it's all this inward kind of conversation. And I thought maybe because of course during that time period that there was people didn't think about autism unless you were like nonverbal or something of that nature. So I thought that she was I thought she might be on the spectrum.
I think that she could have been, right? The only, of course, as you said, they weren't thinking about autism then, right? The only thing that she was diagnosed with was being dyslexic. And so, of course, that kind of adds to her upset. Let me say this too. Now that I'm thinking about it, like Butler was an obsessive writer. Like she would write her archives, which is one of the reasons why her archive is the largest archive by a Black writer, is because she would write and rewrite stories over and over and over again, year in and year out. And it was an obsessive thing for her, right? And she had a lot of internal dialogue that you would see kind of scribbled on the pages. And it takes you, like I was at the Huntington maybe 3 months at a time because I went every summer, and you still did not even make a dent in her archive at all. You had to go in there with a plan and stick to that plan if you wanted to even, get to where you wanted to be. But she was an obsessive writer. She was an obsessive storyteller and journaler, right? And this is why a lot of the things have been redacted and kind of put behind, I don't want to say a paywall, but even some of her writings have been not shown to the scholars at the archive because she was very honest and she wrote some brutal things about some people that's still alive. And it's just so fascinating to see this writer, her thoughts, right? Her, as a lot of people may say, her atrocious spelling, right? She was very honest about her not being able to spell, but she was still able to publish. And I really appreciate that when we're thinking about positive obsession and she's giving the advice. She's saying, you don't need motivation. You need to do it over and over again every day. It needs to become an obsessive thing and you can make it. I think the only thing that's truly sad about Butler's work is she did not receive the notoriety until after her death. So yeah, she could have been on the spectrum for sure. We would never know. But as if our archive can tell any story, it probably would tell the story of her being on the spectrum for sure. Ebony, sorry, girl.
Hello, hello.
Hey.
So I wanted to join in for our last class. Octavia Butler is my favorite author. Even after reading her entire canon, she is still displayed on my bookshelf. I discovered her in 2020
Okay.
During the pandemic, it was a really crazy, period in my life. I not only read So Wild Seed, period in my life. I not only read So Wild Seed was my first
Huh.
introduction to her.
Okay.
And I read Wild Seed, and then I jumped to the Parable series because Dora was just, I couldn't deal with him. So I went to the Parable series and I read that, and then I went into um, different things, about End of the World and, you know, um, Margaret Atwood, and I read 1984. So I did all of that during 2020 during the pandemic. But Octavia Butler has been my favorite author. All of her books, really just dive into human behavior. It's been such an amazing ride with everybody, not just reading it on our own, but being able to read it with a doctor, a
Aw.
scholar who has gone to the archives and who has read her stories. And this book in particular, her going into the very short, maybe autobiography that we got a taste of, was really nice to not only just read her fiction and the world that she builds, but the world that is her mind. Because for me, as a person who dabbles in writing as well, we all know our own inner monologues, and it's nice to hear the inner monologue of the person who has created so many different worlds that you enjoy. So it was nice to understand, the world in her mind that keeps her functioning. It reminded me of, I don't know how many Shonda Rhimes fans that we have. Shonda Rhimes wrote a book, The Year of Yes, that we got to get into her mind. She's the writer of like Grey's Anatomy, Scandal. But The Year of Yes, that was really nice to go inside her mind as well. And I wish that Octavia, got to write a whole autobiography that her fans could not only read her fiction, but know the thought process behind her workings. But even though we just got this little short tangent, that was good. And then also the next one that was specifically to writers, telling them, about the process of writing and how, with different editors, sometimes you're going to get rejection, and the consistency that you have to do. That was just really, it was encouraging to the people that not only enjoy reading, but enjoy writing as well. And this has been an amazing ride. And I'm glad we got to do it with an actual scholar, a doctor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ebony. So yeah, my perspective, when I first encountered Butler, of course, I did not encounter her at the archive. I didn't encounter her work until 2012, preparing for a master's program and not thinking I liked science fiction, right? And so my gateway text was Kindred. And I then went on to read all of her works over the years, and it wasn't until 2019 that I got a Huntington Fellowship and was able to get inside of her unfiltered mind. And I would just say that meeting Butler through the filter is distinctively different than meeting her through the unfiltered. Like, I know a lot of people don't know this, but she passed before she could clean out her archive or her papers that she donated to the Huntington Library. She passed before she could throw away things she didn't want in there. And so everything from her house went there. And I noticed that my first time there in 2019, I met a different version of Butler. I met a version who was, in her mind, it was very chaotic and it was very depressive. And so I think that it took me 3 times three trips to the archive to be able to kind of unwind myself, untangle myself from her mental spirals, because you get so inundated with her thoughts. She is a very big presence on the page, published works, as well as in her thoughts, in her unfiltered thoughts. And I remember having to take days off from the archive because I felt depressed. I felt like I was struggling mentally, and I'm like, I don't understand why am I feeling like this? I was never also trained. I don't know the archive like that, so that was my first time doing that type of research. And it wasn't until I started reading other things or talking to my friends who are regulars at archives, maybe not an individual's archive, but an institution's archive, such as like Tougaloo College, where I went to undergrad. I have a friend who does archival research on the college. And she began to kind of talk to me about, some of the weight you begin to carry just learning the history. And for me, Butler was personal because I kind of encountered her work at a time where I was in a major transition. And I think I've said this before, that I was looking for myself in the pages of Black women writers, and I could not find myself in the pages of a Toni Morrison, a Alice Walker, Ntozake Shange, like all of the Black women writers who were also writing during the 1980s Black women's Renaissance, that a lot of people, they got a lot of notoriety. I did not connect with their Black women characters. But when I read Butler's work, I connected because at the time I too was looking for power. I too was looking for identity. And I'm like, this is it. This is the person. Because prior to that, I was studying Richard Wright and Ralph Ellison, Black male novelists. And then I discovered Butler, and then I just dedicated my entire career to her work. But I think that meeting, and I think everyone should go. If you all ever get an opportunity to go to the Huntington, you do have to register. But I think you all should go to just kind of read some of her papers, even if they aren't the papers that are directly associated with her novels. You should read her writings, her journal entries, things like that, because she's a very honest writer. And I think that that is what I appreciate the most. And to your point, Ebony, when you mentioned the rejection that Butler talks about, or the encouragement through the rejection that she talks about in the essay, I also remember she got tons of rejection letters, especially for Kindred. She got tons of rejection letters for Kindred. And it reminded me of Toni Morrison's book Home, that got rejected as well, because she starts to interrogate the prison system, and that book got rejected, and she put the rejection letter over her toilet in the bathroom, so that every time anyone would go use her restroom, they would see this rejection letter. Of course, we know that this book did eventually find its way into print. But it just shows that you have to be tenacious. You have to believe in yourself against all odds, right? You have to believe in you like Kanye believes in Kanye. And I do think that if anything we can take away from Butler is persistence, especially since sometimes I feel like her editor was her op and working against her in a lot of ways. But we can't take persistence. Even her, I think I mentioned this before, and she kind of alludes to it here in her essays when she's saying that her aunt said, you can't be a writer, right? And she has to push back against those words. You can't do this thing. And she's like, yes, I can. And so we also see like her pushing back against the older generation's thoughts and ideas of what a Black woman can be. And she had to overcome a lot. She had to overcome a lot to be who she is and to be celebrated today. So if nothing else, tenacity for sure, persistence, grit, and be willing to do it on your own terms. Go ahead, Tina. I'm sorry.
I will always give Octavia Butler major credit, because when I think about, for me, I started reading primarily Black authors. And I realized for a long time, if I was reading Black authors, they were always male Black authors, because I couldn't find any female authors. Mm-hmm. And Octavia Butler, first Zora Neale Hurston was the first one. And then after her, there was nothing for a really, really long time for me. And then there was this explosion, that explosion that happened. So prior to that explosion, when you had all these Toni Morrisons and everybody else, Octavia had already been published. Mm-hmm. And so she became like my first Black female author to do that. And she was also the first woman writer that I wrote that the woman was centered, the Black woman was centered, and it wasn't necessarily male centered. So in other words, like with Zora, she would talk about, different things, but it was always also very male centered. And this was, that was the thing that got me. Like, I was like, oh my God, a Black woman can be a hero, whether she was a flawed hero or not, she could be a hero. And then, all the explosion of all the other writers that came during that time period. But I've always appreciated her for that, being the first, also being a voice that you could not mess with, that she's, the Hugo, and then like I said, I'm very active in the speculative community. Like there's like not one person when they talk about who's your influence in this black speculative community, they always mention Octavia Butler. Like she's like it.
Yeah, and I think even if it's not the speculative community or the readers, right? We also see a lot of like artists give Butler homage, such as Janelle Monáe, right? Erica Badu has given Butler homage. And then, of course, if we're thinking about the Afrofuturist movement, of course, you're thinking about how Butler kind of brings up the triangle between Sun Ra, George Clinton, and Butler. So we have I don't even know what to call Sun Ra, to be honest. A filmmaker, maybe?
Yeah.
Visionary. And then you have George Clinton bringing up the music side. And then you have Octavia Butler bringing up the literature side. And these are the people who are central to the Afrofuturist movement as we know it today, which is kind of why we have the Black Panther film, which is why we have all of these artists where we can look at them and think about, oh, they're reimagining the future. Even if we talk about Outkast, I don't know if they are necessarily influenced by Butler's work, but they are kind of included into the discussion on Octavia Butler or on Afrofuturism. And so we can't talk about Black people in the future without talking about Butler's protagonists and how she reimagines futures for Black people unencumbered by sometimes the stain of enslavement. You know what I'm saying? Like even in the essay when she talks about, and this is a well-known thing that I like to quote when Butler, someone asked Octavia Butler, what good is science fiction to Black people? You know what I'm saying? This is a time when Black folks ain't really doing science fiction. There was, what is the Black, Samuel Delany, other Black writer who I really don't love his work, but hey, other Black writer writing during the time that she is writing. And this person asks her, what good is science fiction to Black people? And she's like, what good is any literature to people? Science fiction gets you off the beaten path of what everyone is doing. And I think that was the thing that kind of drew me to her work. I was tired of reading about the struggles and the ways in which authors who were kind of confined to the genre of realism had to write about Black people's struggles or Black women's bodies. I was tired of reading about it. It was depressing to me. And I was like, I need to read someone who's writing about power, but not just theorizing about it. I need to see the demonstration of the power. And of course, you stumble across Butler and you're drawn in. Not to say that Butler's characters do not have struggles, because as we have gone all the way through the canon, we see that they have real struggles, but they don't seem to be particularly encumbered by those struggles. Like those struggles do not fully encompass them in a way that they may encompass a Setha from Toni Morrison's Beloved, or any of the other protagonists from, or Celie from Alice Walker's The Color Purple, right? They don't struggle in the ways in which those Black women characters struggle. And so ultimately I felt like I was tired of reading the struggle literature. I needed to read something else.
This is a way. This is a way that I also fell in love with Octavia Butler, because she was not coloring inside of the lines. Mm-hmm. She was in that essay where she was at the table with her aunt, and her aunt was very adamant as, Black people do not become writers. And she was like, well, I'm going to become a writer. Somebody has to be the first one. And also, in a lot of different ways, people say, this isn't what Black people do, or they call people Oreos if you're outside of what is the typical what Black people do. And then my thought is always, I'm a Black person, so whatever I do is what Black people do. And they say, well, Black people don't swim, they don't go to the beach. And I'm sure with the sisters in tennis, Black people don't play tennis. Well, whatever I do is what Black people do. And Octavia was that trailblazer for everyone. Black people might not have back then written science fiction, but she did that. So whatever she did became what Black people does. And that question, that's why it irritated her. What good is science fiction for Black people? Black people also need entertainment. Black people are also not always in a struggle. They also need different avenues of entertainment as well, and they're entitled to entertainment as well. So I'm glad that she was that trailblazer, just as different people in sports and different people in medicine. Until you are that first one, it's always outside of the line, and everybody's trying to hold you to, this is what Black people do and this is what Black people don't do. No, you create your own line. If it's something that you're passionate about and you are a Black person and you do it, then that becomes what Black people do.
And I want to read that quote that Ebony and I were just discussing. And let me bring up, who's this, Tai Chi? Let me bring up Tai Chi. But I want to read that quote, and then I want to segue into a quick story time, and then we'll get Tai Chi real quick. So if you're reading from this book, it's on page 134. She says, but I'm still asked, what good is science fiction to Black people? And then her reply is, what good is any form of literature to Black people? What good is science fiction's thinking about the present, the future, and the past? What good is its tendency to warn or to consider alternative ways of thinking and doing? What good is its examination of possible effects of science and technology or social organization and political direction? At its best, science fiction stimulates imagination and creativity, which I think is so important. It gets the reader and writer off the beaten track, off the narrow footpath of what everyone is saying, doing, thinking, whoever everyone happens to be that year. And what good is all this to Black people? The quick story time that I want to segue into, and then Tai Chi, you can say what you need to say, is I remember, and this is Butler, I'm going to relate this to Butler, being told that when I wanted to specifically study Butler's work, the scholars had told me, you cannot specifically study Octavia Butler. And these are well-meaning Black women scholars who had been in the field. And of course, they were tenured professors. And here I am, this graduate student, wanting to study her work and kind of getting pushed back as a master's student. But I had a very supportive Black male mentor who's like, no, go ahead, you're going to write this. And this is when Butler was starting to have this re-emerging interest in her work. But when I got into the PhD program, I remember the Black women scholars saying, you cannot do this thing. And the reason why they said that I could not study Butler specifically was because if I wanted to get an academic job, I would not be marketable. And the reason for saying that I would not be marketable was because the people who are on the hiring committees would think that I'm a one-trick pony. And by one-trick pony, they meant that they would think that I could only teach Butler's work. But what was fascinating is that the Shakespeare scholars don't get that pushback. The Milton scholars do not get that pushback. You know what I'm saying? Like, none of the Renaissance scholars get this type of pushback. But when I want to study a Black woman science fiction writer who has roots in African-American literature and culture, the pushback is, if you want an academic job, you cannot do this thing. And so I remember trying to not do the thing, right? I remember trying to write on other Black women authors, but I could not, the ideas wouldn't come, right? I could not do it. And I tried to ditch my dissertation and I tried to do what they were telling me to do, but it didn't feel natural to me. And so I had to kind of make a decision to go against the grain of, and the wisdom of the scholars at that time and say, I'm going to write this. And if I don't get a job, I guess I just won't get an academic job. You know what I'm saying? And so I remember writing on Butler, 12 novels, 9 short stories. I wrote on the collected work, her collected works, and it was an ambitious project. Wasn't perfect by a long shot, but a good dissertation is a done dissertation. And this is for any people who are in PhD programs that are on this live. A good dissertation is a done dissertation, okay? So I went on, I write this dissertation. Of course, y'all know I got the job, but my dissertation also went on to win the department, the college, and the university-wide outstanding dissertation awards, right? And I tell y'all this because I had to push back and stay true to what felt natural to me and stay true to what I thought was I should do. And as we're talking about positive obsession, I was kind of obsessed with Butler's work. As we talk about doing something every day, and you're going to have that internal grit, the tenacity, the persistence, that I really had that moment where the senior scholars were deterring me from doing something, rightfully so, but I had to stick to what felt natural to me and what was honest to me. And then I went ahead and did all this stuff. And now I'm here with you guys. But I wanted to share that story because I always want people to know This is for any aspiring writers, scholars, whatever it is that you're trying to do in your respective field. People can only advise you to what they have seen, up into what they have seen or what they have experienced. So generally, their wisdom stops at their experience or what they have seen. My work on Butler was kind of a little ahead of the time. Now she's like, yeah, we want to learn about Butler. Like, yeah, but like in 2014 when I was writing that master's thesis and in 2017 when I was writing that dissertation, no, it wasn't this camaraderie around her work. It wasn't this excitement, but you have to stick to what you know. And I think Butler kind of shows us that even on the archival post that I may have showed on I was say on the dissertation, shown on the Substack, she stayed true to her craft, even if it wasn't perfect, even if she did not get the applause. And we know that she did not get the necessary applause before her untimely death, but she stayed true to who she was from a child and what she knew. And now look at us talking about her work. Taichi.
Hey everybody. So I just wanted to first come on here again and thank you since it's the last class, and just to echo what everybody said, it's refreshing to, well, as an adult that isn't going back and forth with academia. I can't do no more school, I'm tired. But like to have academic conversations nonetheless, like all the time and effort that you put into, showing us bits and pieces of her archives on the page and writing the questions and coming on here and speaking to us about them. I know that it's time consuming and it's painstaking, and you really didn't have to, especially up to this point. And so I just wanted to express my gratitude and just echo what everybody said, because to, again, explore her work, any works at this level outside of a classroom is very, very rare. And it's very, very interesting.
Wait, Taichi, you muffled a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, bam.
Okay. I said that like this Discord, like everybody's just like, this is my favorite time of the week. And I know I've been missing a couple, but it really is. For reference, like I'm an internal medicine physician and I talk in acronyms all day. So for me to come here and actually exercise parts of my brain that I used to use like repeatedly in multiple languages, like I really, really do relish and thank you for this opportunity to come here and do this. And the reason why I've been missing for a couple of classes is because I had to study and take my board. That is done. So
well,
now,
congratulations ahead of time.
Thank you. I'm here for the final class. And to speak on what everybody was saying is that I read up until crossover, I believe. That's what I could get to, again, because I was preparing the novel and had taken. So this is my first time actually being introduced to Butler's work. Everybody kept talking about Parable. Everybody kept talking about Kindred. I actually saw the Hulu series first and knew that I wanted to, that was something that I was going to come and read eventually. The fact that this was structured was everything I needed and more. And I'm not a sci-fi girl first and foremost. I'm a mystery thriller girl first and foremost. So I like the blood and guts. I like the fighting. I like the horror. I like all of this mystery. And so, well, OB really opened my eyes. And again, I think Ebony was saying like how she was looking at the George Orwell of it all. I was also in that time, the Margaret Atwood, the George Orwell's Animal Farm in 1984. And so I had read that prior to coming into this class. And so I was already in this headspace, and it was just like a happy medium. And so to speak on OB, like, it's refreshing, like looking at her and taking and then out of the science fiction like S.A. Cosby to finally look at all of these authors and finally find people that you can resonate with and characters you resonate with is super refreshing. Again, we're not teaching this in the curriculum. This is not what I grew up learning, reading. You read Hamlet's Tale, but you wouldn't read Parable, and you wouldn't read Kindred. So you have to sit there and seek these things out on your own. And So I never heard about Octavia Butler or her works before this Hulu series popped up, and I made it my business to come to this class and read and get all her works. So she was truly ahead of her time, and the reason I specifically love her work because again, love Tony, not just love Tony. Zora's cool too. But as somebody, I think it was Tina said that their works were kind of centered or didn't really um, champion the female character as much as Mike, and was like pertaining to the struggle, but also you don't. There wasn't a morally ambiguous character. Like OB was here for the girls, like whether they were good, whether they were bad. Like she relished in their, I don't know, their moral ambiguity. Um, and like with all their faults, like again, I don't let up on Anyang, but like you know what I'm saying. With all her faults, her story is told, and it's told in its purest form, in its truest form, not sugarcoating anything or taking anything back. Like it is what it is, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I know that from my list before, the protagonist is clearly good, and like there was no like really bad moral ambiguity there. Like when clearly you're clearly supposed to, you know, make it out or, you know, come out on top at the end somehow. Not the case with any of the characters in OB's books. And that's what I really, really do like because that's a true reflection of who we are as people and women and you know, how complicated and complex we are and especially black women and everything that we do. So I really, really do appreciate OB for that. And all of the work were, again, I loved it, loved coming to class, loved everything about it. And I'm really, really sad that this is over now that I got my life and my free time. Very, very sad. But I get it. I get it. I get it. It's tiring. You gave a lot. You know, you gotta do other things. But if you do decide to come back, let the people know.
I'm gonna let the people know. Y'all gonna be the first people to know y'all mama stick beside y'all. You know what I'm saying? We're probably gonna come back. We probably will come back. I just need to settle some things right now. But if we do come back, just know we're gonna go ahead and start with NK Jemisin.
Awesome. Beautiful. Love
Yeah.
I'm also back at like I'm going back to answer even questions from like other books because I know you list the questions and we all like the post on the subsite, but we don't really answer it on there. So I've been answering it on there just to exercise my mind and like gather my thoughts because again I speak in acronyms all day and I'm seeing people for 10 minutes and coming back and writing notes and so again this is my time to really use all of my brain and so I really, again, I'm very grateful to you, and I really relish this time. I can speak in complete sentences and use my brain and really, really apply critical thinking here instead of algorithms. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Of course. Thank you for that. And thank you for being here. And as we said, I think it's really cool because you and Yash show up on my screen next to one another. And Yash shared last week that she finished, she became a yoga instructor. So she was in school for that. And now you're saying that, you know, during the course of this, you did your board. So congratulations to both of you all. I think that's super amazing that people are still able to, we're able to come together as a community, but you all are still able to achieve your goals and your dreams and elevate your life and then come back to the community and tell us about it. So congratulations to y'all. Yash.
I'm just happy because I heard you say we're gonna be back. I'm like, yeah, we keeping it going because y'all know I love y'all. As far as the readings go, reading well, I know we're not really talking about that, but I'm kind of still at work right now, so I'm gonna say my piece real quick. It was very informative reading the two essays in that are in Bloodchild. It didn't help me agree with her, but it did put some things into perspective, like the story that she wrote about when she was saying like, oh, we lost $60 to a publisher, and that was more than what my mom paid in rent. Like, I can understand. Like, it just put a lot of things in perspective. Like, I could understand why her mom wouldn't want her to be a writer, or wouldn't even be able to see her as a writer, because OB said herself, like, she was a teenager and she hadn't even read anything written by a Black woman. So if there is no representation, and if all you know is that like artists are struggling and starving, and there are no Black female writers, then I understand both perspectives, and it kind of made me understand why she writes her mother-daughter relationships the way that she does, because even though she might have gotten along with her mom and they were cool, at the end of the day her mom did not support what she was doing. Um so um i'm i was just very happy with reading those. And then I forgot what the story was called. Mother of
The
I
Book of
mean,
Martha.
yeah, Book of Martha. I felt like all of her short stories just felt like a shooter of the longer books that we read. And they were more rooted in reality versus science fiction. And I know that she wanted to be a science fiction writer, but I feel like her writing was better when she wasn't trying to be all abstract and whatnot. So it was just like a good conclusion to the class, and I'm excited to start MK.
That's so funny. I think it's so funny that you mentioned her wanting to be a science fiction writer, because there is this big debate amongst academics as to whether she is a science fiction writer, or should we say she's a speculative fiction writer. And because the only text that she really does use science and technology is in her rescinded text, which is Survivor, right? And so generally, I don't know if it's still the case right now, but generally people fail to classify her because they don't know what to classify her as, because she kind of borders on a lot of lines. And so the divide is whether she is science fiction or if she is speculative. To me, it doesn't really matter in my mind, but that's a debate for the scholars. I did think about you when I was reading Amnesty, Yash, and I was like, I wonder what Yash would say, because this kind of feels like Dawn in a different way, with Lilith and the communities taking her in and all the other stuff. And I know you all had some very specific things to say about Lilith and feelings about Lilith, especially how she partnered with Eo and Kali. And I was like, I wonder if Yash is about to pick up on this. Feels a lot like Dawn.
Yeah, and even in the Book of Martha, it kind of felt like Dawn to a certain extent. And I mean, even the essay where she positive obsession, I was like, okay, this is Doro. Like, because Doro was
Oh, girl,
positive.
cut it out.
He
Cut
he
it
was,
out.
but he was. I'm not bringing him up in a tea way. I'm just saying, like, oh, like, now that I've read these two essays, I can see her in a lot of the characters that she wrote.
Okay.
Like, it helped put a lot of things into perspective. And I would argue that she's I know I'm sorry, OB, I'm sorry, girl, but I would argue that she's not a science fiction writer. She's more of a speculative, I would even call it fantasy, because
A lot of her work is fantasy.
yeah, because I feel like it's more fantasy than science. Like, the only science-y kind of books that I felt was like the Exogenesis series and maybe Clay's arc. I didn't even feel science fiction from
Survivor.
no,
Oh.
no, Survivor. Survivor, she just needed to finish that book.
I
Like,
think
it wasn't finished.
no,
It
for
ended
sure.
it ended with a slap and a dream. So I could understand why she rescinded it, but then I also understand how it fits into her canon and why someone like you would want it to be put back in print.
Yeah. So I think that when I'm thinking about the sciencey aspect, it's just how the spaceships are powered with the defective mutes, right? But you would only fully know all of that if you were at the archive, right? And which is why I shared as much as I could share on the Substack about the backstory. And I did a lot of hand holding with Survivor that I did not do with the other texts because I needed us to understand what was happening. But I can definitely see like the science aspect as it relates to, more specifically, like medicine, as it relates to Clay's arc for sure, and the xenogenesis and the ways in which the O and Kali interact or change the genetic makeup of the humans and all those things. Shanandi.
And wait, and one more thing.
Okay.
I'm not super religious, but as I think it's Tai Chi that says that Butler was trying to write through her church hurt. It just hit me when
Religious.
I was reading one of the stories. I can't remember which one, but the Owen Collie are kind of like Noah's from Noah's Ark in the sense that they're taking one of everything on a ship to preserve it.
Mm. And making copies. That's something to think about because even when we do have the protagonist named Noah in Amnesty, right? Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. I
Yeah.
can see.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm muting now.
Okay. Shanandi.
Hello.
Hey.
I am late. I almost missed the class, and I would have been so upset if I ended up missing it. So, but I hope I'm not repeating. Well, I might be repeating what others have said, but just a big thank you for this space, for creating this space, and for the love and the work that you put into the space, and how you shared your passion with us, and it was really I really appreciate that, and appreciate you for that. Um, the two essays that she wrote made me want more. It made me want to. I wish there was like a book of Octavia Butler essays. Yeah. I really, I would have really that I really would have loved to dig into it. They gave me such good. I feel like I know more about her in those two short essays than all the books that we've read. So I wanted to ask you: what biography would you recommend? Have you read any biographies on her?
No, I have not. I know that one was just released.
Yeah, the Positive Obsession.
I have not
Okay.
read that. A majority of the things that I read on Butler is the scholarship. And, of course, Gary Canavan's Octavia is probably the one who takes you through her writing, her thoughts behind each story or each narrative, and just some things that will help you bridge the gap. To know Butler a little bit more, I have not gotten a chance to dive into the biography. I probably will once this class is over. I feel like it could be the most expansive. The one that just came out could be the most expansive. The others are more so their thoughts and their interactions with Butler, and things that they may have done with Butler or with her archive. Because I know there was a Black woman journalist who released one a few years back, but it wasn't about Butler per se. You know what I mean?
Right.
So probably the latest one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
But yes, I've always wanted to do something like this, and I'm so glad that I was able to find your page and participate in this class. It's been amazing. So thank you.
Of course. And you missed the beginning of the class when I was telling the story about how, like, moments before I got up here on TikTok and started to say that the California wildfires remind me of Butler's Parables, how I was like bawling my eyes out on the couch because I felt like my work was going to waste. And then it just so happened this time and chance moment where TikTok University is taking off,
Right.
fired, and then here I am talking about it all. It just all came together, and y'all saw me put together this class on the fly because it was never supposed to be a class. Not for real. I just thought I was gonna just talk about it, but then when people were like, "Hey, we wanted more," and I'm like, I can't just talk. I'm not a lecturer. I'm more of a conversationalist, and I cannot just be up here talking and teaching at you guys. So it was really, really great to create the space on the Substack as well as here to hear you all's thoughts. And I said that this is the best experience I've had teaching Butler's work because we all come from different places, different backgrounds, and we're bringing this flavor to the class that I have never had, and I've taught her at various universities and various spaces. But this is probably the most enriching experience that I've had with her work. So I thank you guys as much as you guys and gals. I don't want to call y'all guys, but y'all not guys. I want to thank you all for rocking with me and giving me the opportunity to kind of just facilitate the discussion just as much as, you all are grateful for me. I'm grateful for y'all.
Thank you.
You're
Looking
welcome.
forward to what comes next, whatever you do, whatever you're going to be doing in this next iteration that you're working on, I'll definitely be around to cheer
Oh,
you on.
thank you. Thank you so much. Tina,
So
you took
yeah. So what I was gonna say is that my husband was in the academics. He was going through school, trying to get going through the work, trying to get his PhD and all the rest of it. And I saw him teach. I saw him do a whole lot of stuff, and it is a bear. I mean, I didn't realize just how cutthroat and ego-driven and asinine academia can be. So anybody who goes through that, I just applaud them because I just know the struggle. And so when you get out of the ivory towers and you come out, you have been able to be like, don't take it. It's not. It's beyond just teaching and people answering questions. The thing that you did for me in this course is that you helped me to open my eyes to see things differently. Like I told you, I've read Butler several times, a whole canon or whatever else. But this for me, this go around has been the first time I think I see her. So not just the words, but that I see Octavia Butler. That I could center what was happening and what she was going through and sympathize with her and understanding where some of this was coming from. And even being able to think about when you talk about fiction writers, I think people just think that they just sit down at a typewriter and they just go for it. But the fact that she had all this research, she did all this discovery, and she did all of these additional things, which are not traditionally something that you think about when somebody is writing a story, a fiction story.
Yeah.
So you just did that. And even like I told you before, the best thing for me with my husband was that I would take your questions and he and I would have a discussion offline about like some of it. Like he couldn't always necessarily because he wasn't reading the books, but we would have these really good discussions around some of the premises that were there. So your work went beyond what you would see in the ivory tower. It basically spoke to people in a if you will, a layman's term, but it was strong enough and rich enough to be able to be uplifting and inspirational and all the rest of it. And that's your work, not Octavia's, your work.
Thank you.
Your genius. I just want you to, your genius. I think that sometimes it's like you get lost in that or whatever else. So yeah, like when I saw Positive Obsession, I was like, well, did you talk to Dr. Bree about this before you published it? In my mind, like, I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if you're gonna have to write.
No, if you know how academia is. If you don't have the book, you don't have the respect. And I think at the university that I was at, we had two ways to get tenure. You could either write the book or you had to do the 5 to 7 articles. And I went the article route because I was closer to that than the book. And unless you have a book, they're not really citing your work. Which or maybe I'm wrong. I probably need to look at the table. I mean, the works cited page. If the person does look at the scholarship, but I probably doubt it. We don't have the discussion. Or if they are consulting the scholars, they're not consulting the junior scholars like I was. They're consulting the senior scholars, people who have been in the field longer. than I have been in and have a little bit more maybe notoriety, but have not spent their entire career on her work, if that makes sense, right?
So, and here's the other thing. I kept thinking, like, I would hear all these think pieces about, like the trajectory of what our world is in America and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm like, my God, this woman needs to be a talking head. And I swear, at one point, I'm like, I told my husband, I said, maybe I should just say, like, okay, let's put you together a media kit and send that out.
I forget that you were in
Because
marketing.
hell, I'm like, if Tim Wise can be the person that's going through stuff, and he does not have any degrees, that there is no way that you're not going to be able to get in there. When they had all that Handmaid's Tale kind of stuff that was happening, that it just seemed to me like there was a place for a voice, because everybody would refer to the parables, but they only refer to like a part of it. Like they didn't get into the whole thing and all the different books that she had that talks about it. So I don't know. I'm just saying you do need a media kit and some. I'm just saying easy, accessible ways people can hear about it. Yes.
Thank you, Tina. I always forget you told me you were in marketing at the earlier class when you mentioned media kit. I think, y'all know what's very funny, and I kind of alluded to this in the beginning of this conversation. I was going through very deep grief during this class, right? And I think that just the thought of engaging in a way with the public, still trying to position myself as a scholar as I'm grieving this career decision, though I knew I needed to do it. It was overwhelming. I could not get out of that emotion. And so though I would show up and I would have these discussions and I was still being the scholar, I just did not have the heart to continue on in a way outside of what I had already committed to. And it could have been a missed opportunity, or the opportunity will spin the block and come back around. But I just want to be like so honest that there were days where I just didn't have the heart and the courage and the grit, the internal fortitude to position myself as this expert, though I had all the materials, because my heart just wasn't in it. And that was because I was trying to figure out, who am I outside of this? And this has been you for you. I mean, of course, that you've given up your childhood dream. This was your childhood dream. You've given up this stuff and you're moving out of this. And now you're trying to negotiate who you are without this thing that has been a part of you for so long. And then when you all came around, when this class came around, it helped to bridge the gap between the grief, the interest that was still kind of there, but also kind of helped me understand that I could still do this and be this type of person without the institutional backing. And I think that it took me to go through this class with you all for 9 months to kind of fully understand the totality of the experience and what and who I am outside of, my career and everything like that. So at that time, I just didn't have it. I didn't have it.
It's not too late. That's what I'm saying.
It is not too late.
He's crazy as hell, so it's not too late. It's not too late. There's a way to pivot this.
There is. I'm gonna get with you, Tina. I hear you. You probably the answer I'm looking for. I hear you. But yeah, y'all. Yes. So yes to everything you all have said and shared about Butler's work. And as you mentioned, Tina, that this was the first time you were able to see Butler herself, not just her writing, but her. I think I saw a different version of her as well as I've gone through these texts with you all. And I think that there's something very important about when I'm hearing other Black women discuss this text, as opposed to me discussing it with my multicultural students that live on the West Coast, right? We're all in different places, some traveling, some coming from work, professionals, some students, we all are coming together to this text with different experience. And I think that I learned a whole heck of a lot. Teaching this or discussing this. I don't even think I posed as teacher more in the discussions as I did on the Substack, but I learned a lot about Butler and from you all, right? In ways in which that are not kind of overshadowed by academic titles or performative things that academics do. Y'all know. Well, Tina, I know you know. And y'all know, if y'all been through school, y'all already know what's up. Academics can be very anal and very problematic. And it felt really great to have just a community to discuss and not feel like you had to be on. You know what I'm saying? We could be ourselves. We can kiki, we can laugh, we can go off on door roll, and then we can spin the block and get back serious. I really appreciate that. Lactose intolerant, hey.
I just wanted to jump on what you said and thank all of the Black women who have been showing up to this group. As a very white person, there is so much I would have missed without your insights and your connections, and it made this experience so much richer and more interesting to me. So thank you for your labor, and I really appreciate you all.
Oh, thanks, Lactose. And shout out to our cookout members. Shout out to the people who have been invited to the cookout. Thank y'all for rocking with us and listening and joining. And y'all know who I'm talking about. Listening and joining and chatting and all the things. Thank you all for rocking with us too, because I think that you all's insights were also just as important as our insights, right? And so we appreciate y'all for rocking with us and listening and being willing to learn and being open to learn. Where my girl Christy at? She up here or no? She ain't been on for a while. My girl Christy. Diana, hey, of course. And I remember y'all know it's so fascinating. And Diana saying that jogged my memory. When TikTok University first started, I had people asking me, can white people join the class? And I'm like, what do you mean? What I don't understand why you all are asking me why you can join the class. And then it wasn't until I understood that there were other types of rhetoric surrounding TikTok University and saying it's only for Black folks, it's only a Black space. And I'm like, that's not me. That's not my character. That's not my person. Yes, let's have the discussions together. So
that was such an unnecessarily I don't know, just it was channeled so badly, and it could have gone so well. Because that's how I found you after looking at some TikTok University posts and thinking, oh, let me sign up for some classes. And then this was the only one which was not a part of TikTok University, and it was the only one that actually survived. So it was unnecessarily ridiculous, that everything that went on with that whole thing.
It was unnecessary. I agree. And I was wondering if I was a Lone Ranger still surviving 9 months later. And thank you for confirming that I'm the only one that survived.
Well, the only one I'm aware of, I should
Okay.
say. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of it after all the, y'all know what went down. But we here. We here, we're learning. And I think I just had the time and the flexibility and the heart to do it. And y'all were great, right? As I said, I only planned on teaching up into the pattern series, and somehow we didn't went through 6 other books and a collection of short stories. And that is because of you all. That is because of you all showing up, willing to learn, and interested in the work.
We bullied you into doing more.
Low key, on the lowest of keys. I kind of felt bad. I'm like, what?
I mean, you can't say no to Black women and other people trying to read.
And Black school kids saying and begging for more. And still asking for more. No, I appreciate it. I just need y'all know I got some stuff going on. I want to be able to give you all my undivided attention and my best effort if I do it. And we'll probably be back soon and very soon before the holiday for sure. I just need a second. But we ain't talked about none of the stories. We got 20 minutes. We haven't talked about Annesty. We ain't talked about
when does sophomore year start?
sophomore year is insane.
I gotta call it something.
Nah, it's sophomore year. We did a whole year. No, she's correct. It's sophomore year. I graduated as a freshman. Okay, I dropped 5 classes so I could pay attention. I need my credits.
Y'all did some math this class.
I can't even
every week.
I told y'all I can't even talk about Octavia Butler like a regular person anymore. People be like, "Oh, have you read Parable of the Sower?" I'm like, I've read all of her books. Please don't even get me started.
Yeah, this is a master's course though, for sure. The way that we were rolling this out. This wasn't even an undergraduate course like I had originally planned. This functions like a master's course. So y'all, look, Ebony said we need college credit. If I had some college credit to give y'all, I would have given it to you because this is 2 classes, 9 months. We generally go 16 weeks at a time. So y'all didn't made it. So yeah, the part 2 I think will start late October. Don't quote me on that, but it will probably be after my birthday, and my birthday's on October 13th. But it may start late October. I just need a breather. Okay, and then when I do start it up, I'm gonna just make the announcement on the Substack, and then we're gonna start with N.K. Jemis's trilogy. Like I think it's easier for us to spend time in Black authors' minds and worlds, especially since we haven't been able to do that up until Butler. No one was really writing in their extended form up until Butler. Of course, we had Alex Haley's Roots, but there's a lot of controversy surrounding that. But no one had covered so much time before Butler. And now we have authors writing in series form covering this time. And I think that's just so great to do. Tina?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sitting here laughing at the comments.
No, because Tina, I was just about to say, you need to find us a way to get us some credits because I'm about to put this on my CV.
I know, right? I know.
But Dr. Bree, you're gonna be a reference. Yes.
Oh, you know what? Y'all can put this as a workshop.
Okay, this what I'm gonna do. Do we get certificates? I'm putting this on my CV.
Yeah,
I work
I'll
hard.
put this as a workshop for sure.
Okay.
No, for sure. Y'all can. This is considered a communal workshop for sure. So y'all can put this on there. And even if I write, like I said, I didn't say this, but even if I write a academic paper like the one I shared when I was teaching in prison, this counts as scholarly work. Y'all know what I'm saying? So if y'all rocking with CVs, put it on there. It diversifies your stuff for sure. Okay, Tina.
Okay, I was just gonna say. I thought are we gonna talk about the stories or we're just?
We trying. Look, we trying to get there. Which one should we start with? The Book of Martha.
Yeah, the Book of Martha was okay. So when I read the Book of Martha and God asked, what would you do? I yelled out, racism and prejudice. What would I eliminate right away? I'm like, all forms of racism, all forms of prejudices. And I was wondering, did anybody else have that like ethereal, like gut, like when she was like, what could you be, and what would you want to eliminate, and all the rest of it. That was my thing, and I was wondering, did anybody else have that same reaction or a similar one in that?
I didn't. My reaction was, why she got to be the lowest of them? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know how we say like the Black women are at the lowest on the totem pole, and God giving her that option. No matter what she did, she was still going to be the least of them. And I think that was one of the things that I struggled with the most of the Book of Martha. Like, I'm like, yes, okay, you're giving this Black woman a chance to change, and she has this agency, but at the end of the day, she's still low. And I think that was the hardest part. But I didn't even think of what I would do. I didn't.
Yeah, I was like, when he was talking and, talking about all the bad things that could happen or whatever else, if you, only limit like population and world situations. And even when he talked about the caste system or whatever, if you eliminate all racism, all prejudices, then there won't be a caste system. You won't be the lowest. You won't, there won't be that. It'd be the validation of what it is. And I just thought that was, so for me, that was the thing that got me. I kept saying, girl, just say racism. Just say racism or prejudice, like any of those kind of like hierarchy, caste, or any of that kind of stuff. Just eliminate that, and what would happen? Gender, any of that, ageism, all of that.
I think that if we could use George Schuyler's work, I feel like I've referenced his work before called Black No More, when they did get rid of black folks, got rid of their black skin, and everyone is white. And what ended up happening, the black community fell apart, all the black newspapers fell apart. But ultimately, I think at the end of the story, people learned that if this isn't a thing, humans will find something else to create a hierarchy out of. And so I would be very interested. And I feel like that was kind of what God in the story was alluding to as well. Like, yeah, we can do this, but they're going to find another way to one up each other or to kind of make slaves out of the lowest members of society. Right. So I will wonder what else would humans come up with in order to kind of, hold that power dynamic that so many people are intoxicated with.
Yeah, I think that could be true. But for me, when I thought about like eliminating all prejudice, casteism, racism, whatever, it's like then those things that you're looking for, there wouldn't be if it doesn't mean the absence of different races. It doesn't mean the absence of genders. Like there's like it's gonna be just male or just female. It doesn't mean that. Or any of that stuff. It's just saying there's no you can't hold this person for whatever reason less than you.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. I think people are so power hungry that they gonna find any other way. You know what I'm saying? Sam, I love that you brought up Derek Bell's writing because yes, you are absolutely correct. If y'all don't know who Derek Bell is, he was a legal scholar who is largely kind of accredited with being one of the foundational members of critical race theory. And the way that I really like his Faces at the Bottom of the Well, and he has another text. Is it And We Are Not Saved? I think that's what it is. My bookcase is over there. But I really like his work because he does this speculative musing or these conversational thing that we see Butler doing with God. And so if y'all want to read some short stories, and I think I reference him on the Substack. It's on the paid side when I am asking for your feedback on this academic article that I'm submitting. I do kind of reference Derek Bell in Butler's The Evening and the Morning and the Night. And so if y'all are interested in this type of story format, feel free, definitely check out some of Derek Bell's short stories, but you can also check out, I think it's W.E.B. Du Bois's The Space Traders, if you're interested in this as well. And this is basically a story where America decides to trade all Black people to aliens, and you can guess what the people who are left felt. Taichi, I was it's already under review. So if I get a revise and resubmit, absolutely. And I said that if y'all give me input and I can use it, I will definitely cite you all, in the article. Black Stoop Kid, hey.
Hey, I thought I would come on and like talk a little bit about the that she would have to go back as like the lowest of the low, like when she like woke up or went back to Earth or whatever. I was trying to like reconcile that in my head as I was reading it, and I was thinking about how like how the like stipulation makes it so that she cannot make a change that only empowered few because she would have to return as the lowest. So she had to make a change that everybody could benefit from, regardless of their station. And I thought it was really fascinating that it was dreams that ended up kind of like being the change. Because even just thinking about how we dream now, how like, they say that you only dream in the split seconds before you wake up. And it's like with every passing moment, like the dream gets further and further away. But like, and how like dreams are also the things that we think of subconsciously, and without intention, but they're things that are deeply on our mind, or that will come up eventually. And so I just think that that's interesting that people would be able to like live in their own fantasy, but that it would only encourage them to continue living, like,
Mm.
but like doesn't materially change anything about their lives. And like, what does that mean for like a potential utopia, like for us, for like real people, not in a story?
Well, I think in my mind, we kind of have that with social media and artificial intelligence and VR, like all of these simulated realities that we're immersed in every day. I think that when I think about how we're just more so immersed in it today than we're immersed in alternative realities every day. And I think about how some people just want to continue on just to get back into this reality, right? You're living, but you're not really living in reality. Your reality, you're living in a social media reality. You're having parasocial relationships, and all of this is real, right? And I'm wondering the impacts of that, because it is kind of like a dream in a way. And when we wake up, we can kind of, in my mind, our waking up is putting our phone down, having to go ahead and deal with the reality of our lives. What you think?
Wow. Yeah. Like, I'm definitely thinking about how, like, people talk about how, like, you only post your highlights, and like you get to create the perfect image on social media, and then you return to your real life and you kind of deal with what's right in front of you. And like to that effect, like it messes with your mental, right? For like us real people, because we're so enamored by this version of ourselves that does not exist, a version of other people that does not exist. And we get wrapped up into that, trying to chase it, when there's something very different, like before our eyes, that like we should be dealing with. And I wonder if that is ultimately what would happen, like in the story, if it continued on, like what is the consequence of seeing perfection and having to wake up to reality every day?
I think you avoid reality even more. And I think one of the texts we read, didn't someone mention that their mother or their parent did not really take care of them because they were in VR or a virtual reality for so long? It's somewhere in Butler's works. I don't remember what story we read this, but there was someone making commentary on the fact that their parent did not take care of them because virtual reality was so real and it was better than living. And I think about how you can be whoever you want to be online, right? And how depressing people feel that their reality is. So they're constantly or chronically online trying to escape the reality of their lives. Like I have friends who are gamers, and the gamer version of them is not who they are. Or I have friends who are influencer, and the influencer version of them is not who they are, right? So you can create this avatar of a person. Lactose intolerant probably was talents. It probably was talents. You can create this avatar of a person, and you can be whoever you want to be online, and then go back to this sad reality, to the point where you're only in this reality when you are about to go to sleep. And then at that point, you can't wait to wake up to get back to this reality. It's a dissociation for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think social media has done that for us. Because I also think, like, because I'm in influencer spaces, because that's primarily what I post about on TikTok. Even when you think about follower count or even viewer count, people sometimes are really mad, like, oh, I only got 300 views, but it's like, are you able to sell out a 300 seat stadium? 300 people have laid eyes on you. In the real world, 300 people probably would not sit down and listen to anything you have to say. Right. And so it's this distorted reality that we struggle with, or people struggle with daily. Yeah,
I always say, like, okay, you got 25 likes on Instagram. That doesn't seem like that much. But if 25 people walked up to you and said, "I like your outfit," you would be overwhelmed.
Period.
Or like your Instagram post got 100 likes, but if there were 100 people in your house right now, you would be overwhelmed. I always like try to think of it like from that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, it creates this false sense of reality, or a false sense of worthiness, I think, that a lot of people struggle with, which is also why people struggle. We're having a lot of mental health issues, and people are struggling with self-esteem. Like all of this is a result of the simulated reality that we are all interacting with online. And which is why I found the metaverse, when they were trying to roll it out, it was probably a premature rollout. Trying to roll it out prematurely, I was very interested in how that will alter people's reality. Because if reality is, if the simulated reality is more interested than reality, people are going to opt out of living real life.
If you want to see something crazy, go to what's that Second Life. That they used to be, Second Life used to be a program where people had basically second lives. They lived virtually, and you can sign up to it or whatever else. I had a CEO when I worked for a major educational company, who was she was like the COO, and she was hooked on Second Life. And I just thought that was like, she had a whole different family. She had all of this kind of stuff. You could live your fantasies, do all of these different things. You had stores that you could set up. They had money that you could, exchange stuff. You pay for stuff or whatever. It's called Second Life. Now I'm not sure how, whether or not that's still going or whatever else, but I remember this is in the early like 2002, 2003, something like that, when Second Life was out. People were hooked on that.
I also want to add, if y'all want to see something real freaky, if you read John Mars, The Family Experiment, so basically it's a virtual reality contest, but it's reality TV. So everybody's watching you live your kind of life, but you have to do that raising a baby, and it's a virtual baby. And whoever wins or whoever gets voted the best family gets a prize and also gets fertility treatment, which people are fertile, which is, again, I'm a thriller girly. And this is like, John Mars is an exquisite writer. So it's very, very freaky, and it plays on our need for escapism, especially with reality television. And now that we're using AI for everything, like it's a whole virtual suit in like the metaverse, like you would like what, and then whatever Apple was trying to roll out, that whole thing, it combines it into one. And then the fact that there's a lot of toxic waste in how they're using, how the AI is generated. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody who's going to read, but that's very, very freaky how they power the thing. So with us, we know that AI is destroying our world because we have to give it water in order to cool everything. How this AI is powered is very freaking freaky, and it's going to freak everybody out. And you're going to be like, no AI for me, but I won't spoil it in case somebody wants to read it. But again, it's called The Family Experiment by John Mars. Very freaky.
Oh my God. Lactose intolerant. I think that question was for Tina. I think Tina watched Star Trek.
Big tracking.
So she asked the question in the chat. I don't know nothing about Star Trek. Don't ask me.
Yes.
What was the name of the book, Tai Chi? Tai Chi. What's the name of the book, dude?
The Family Experiment by John Mars, and Mars is Marrs. He's a British writer. They all serial killers over there, so they write good fiction. They write good stuff. But The Family Experiment is so freaky. And I had to put the book down in a couple instances, and then I read everything in like 2 days. Because I had to figure out how it ended. Very freaky. I'll also put it down there in the chat in case anybody wants to read it.
In Lactose Intolerant, yes, there is a VR addiction episode in The Next Generation about VR addiction. And they're in fact they talk about that something they have called a holodeck. So that comes up quite a bit.
There we go. I don't know nothing about it.
Okay, don't get me started talking about Star Trek.
No.
I'm trying to depart. Don't let me do that.
Yeah, we do, and we at 7:31. It's time. It is time for us to say so long for right now. See you later. See you later for right now. So I just want to just reiterate. The plan is we will come back late October with NK Jemison. I need to just get my life together real quick. But I will send the message to the Substack and via email so that everyone is aware of the new schedule and stuff like that. But again, y'all, this has been fantastic. Thank you guys so much. I will be rocking with y'all soon enough. Okay. Bye. Good night.
Everybody, thank you.
All right, bye.